So, my friends, welcome to a new crypto update video. Bitcoin at 117,800 US dollars. Once again, we've faced rejection at our major resistance up here at 111,000 US dollars, even though the news situation is actually very, very good. In fact, we have good news, between China and the USA. Inflation data has risen, but it's still below the forecast. Next step, yesterday's auctions of the 10-year government bonds also went very, very well. Today, the 30-year government bonds are coming up. All in all, everything is great, everything is peachy. Let's see what impact this will have now, as long as we hold our support. I'll definitely go into this a bit more in detail now on the stream, in the video, and see if we might even have some small long options here. Of course, we'll also take a look at the altcoins, the stock markets, and so on. And just a little reminder for tonight, it's Thursday. You know what that means. Tonight at 7 o'clock, it's live stream time again. I'm definitely looking forward to it, tonight on YouTube, Kick, and of course also on stream. Feel free to join in. I'll post the links for you in the Telegram group, and before we get started with the video, I'd like to ask you to please give the video a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to turn on the bell so you'll get notified whenever there's a new video. And as I said, if you want the latest updates, feel free to join the free Telegram Talk and Signal group. The link for that is also down in the video description. There you'll also find the links to my partner exchange, Binks. If you're currently interested in getting 11,500 USDT in bonuses, just sign up below, complete a few tasks, and you will get a little starting bonus. So, Bitcoin at 178,800 US dollars. As I said, or as I already mentioned in the intro, we've had another rejection up here at our resistance level. The RSI was pretty high, and the volume was very, very thin. These are all factors, even though the news situation is really perfect, but as you can see once again, it's not necessarily the news that determines the price, but rather the market itself and how it reacts. As I said, in terms of volume, it's very, very weak. The 4-hour close isn't really strong either. Still, as we already discussed yesterday or the day before, these are the alternatives here, so support number 1 is right here between 107,700 and 107,000 US dollars. That's support number 1. That's where we are right now. Support number 2 is down here at the moment at 105,800 US dollars. That would ultimately be, if we quickly draw in the vectors here, also the vector candle. That means these support zones are crucial in my opinion. If they hold, we still have a chance to rise toward 114,000 to 116,000 US dollars. And as I said, since the news situation is also very, very good at the moment, except for the thing with, I think, Iran, which is flaring up again tonight, I'd be a little cautious there, but it shouldn't necessarily trigger a major stock market crash, at least not for now. As I said, things are actually pretty calm today. We do have, if we look at 2:30 p.m., the producer prices, which are good and also important to see how things are economically, but everything else is really great at the moment, you really have to say. So right now, everything is working in our favor for a higher or even a new all-time high. This evening, we also have the auction of the 30-year government bonds. Yesterday, there was very, very strong demand for them and so on. So that's also a good sign that people at least still have interest in the US at the moment. Let's take a look at the funding rates. The funding rates, yeah, they're normal, but that's not really surprising. It's still, we're complaining here, in quotes, about normal funding rates of 0.01%. That's actually complete nonsense at the levels we're currently at. And then, last but not least, the heat map. It also gives us indications of a possible all-time high on a 3-day view. We don't even need to look at the 1-week and 2-week views, because there's really nothing above us anymore. That's why we really have to look at the monthly view now. There you can also see 111,000 up to 113,000. That's really very, very close to my target, which I would wish for, this red box here. This overarching red box that I would like to see for a possible, also on the daily chart if we take a quick look, for a possible double top. The fractal that you see here on the side, we already talked about it earlier this week, is still in play as long as we close above 104,000 US dollars, or rather, as long as we stay above the 104,000 US dollars mark. Otherwise, for me, as soon as this 104 or 105,000 mark breaks, it's very, very likely that the 98 or even the 93,000 US dollars will come into play. That still stands. Before that, I'm still bullish about the whole thing, as long as we don't have a double top here yet, because you can see for yourself on the daily chart, yeah, okay, the RSI is pretty high, but it still gives us the chance to come up again and form a double top. That really means these 113, 114, maybe 116, in order to possibly trigger this divergence up here. That would be the ideal scenario for a top, to then, let's say, make a turnaround, possibly in the coming weeks. Alright, that's it for Bitcoin for now. Let's move on to Ethereum. How does it look there? Ethereum, got rejected again, but, and here's the big but, it actually doesn't look that bad, I have to say at this point. And that's because we've just seen a nice retest here. So the former zone that acted as resistance here, this 2,740 level where we kept getting rejected, was broken through impulsively yesterday, even with slightly increasing volume. But still, the overall volume trend, which I really don't like, is continuing to decline noticeably. So the volume keeps dropping more and more. Not exactly a great or positive sign. But still, the retest has at least started off positively here. We've moved above our previous highs, which means that liquidity up here has now been tapped for the first time. So we can remove the red box, and our target remains at 3,020 up to 3,139 US dollars. No matter the time frame, those are our targets from a daily perspective. You can still see this inefficiency here. At the top is the golden pocket. I'd really like to reach this red box up here before we've been in the green for over a year now, you know? In general, we might see a correction. And of course, for all the altcoin fanatics or altcoin season fans out there, it would probably be, the best case scenario to go up here one more time, because then the whole altcoin market would probably pick up a bit, since altcoins are actually kind of the problem right now. They're not really impressing me yet. So they're still not really gaining much traction. Sure, here and there, yeah, you get something like that Joe coin, Farcoin, and stuff like that, but, yeah, unfortunately, this still isn't an altcoin season. Solana, same story. We talked about it yesterday too, 168 US dollars, just barely missed the golden pocket, and the 200-day SMA here still seems to be a strong resistance for the price. For everyone who's still long here, let's do this. This has been the long zone. Still 2 take profits, and I'd only take the 3rd take profit up here in the golden pocket, and that's also where I consider opening a short position as a hedge, if needed. Otherwise, the target remains clear of either a pullback to the golden pocket, which we just barely missed at the moment, or a breakout up here toward 184 or even 194 US dollars. So Solana is also very, very calm, but you can see that as soon as Bitcoin makes even a tiny little move downward, it just drags the altcoins down with it, and, that's not really ideal. That's not how I'd like to see things. So, if you want to be extremely bullish here, let's move over to the traditional markets. How is gold doing? Gold, 3,375 US dollars, is reacting well. It's held up nicely in our zone here, where we basically found our support. The 200 SMA on the 4-hour chart held, and the retest of our symmetrical triangle also held. But now we really need to see a bit more volume here. So the next goal is to break above 3,406 US dollars, and then it could make an impulsive move toward the all-time high. Our all-time high is currently up here at 3,500 US dollars. That could also be the next target in the coming days, depending on how quickly we can move upward from here. The traditional markets look a bit, different. Let's take a look. Oh, I sorted it so I wouldn't lose track of it. Alright, down here. Let's start with the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq just barely missed the all-time high. You can see it here. We're pulling the whole thing up a bit again. At the moment, it was still short by 0.85%. And that's still one of those things that really bothers me right now, because you can see here, everything is getting tighter and tighter. Of course, it could also be a positive breakout, but still. In terms of volume, yeah, it really wasn't all that strong either. We actually have some really, really good news. China deal, as I said, inflation is going down, and who knows what else. Everything is actually super, top-notch here, I have to say at this point. And still, the Nasdaq doesn't care and hasn't reached its all-time high yet. Those are the kinds of things that still make me a bit suspicious. We need to keep an eye on it, but otherwise, it's also important to stay a little cautious here. Dow Jones, same story, also not really showing any momentum. It's still just barely above its resistance level here. So right now, there's really a lack of momentum, and the S&P 500 is also very, very weak. So the indices, the US indices, yeah, for now everything is still holding up here. We can go ahead and remove that now. For now everything is still holding, but we really need to see some upward momentum soon, and it's already Thursday. Making moves like that on a Friday, I don't know about that. Let's see what the next few days bring. As long as the support holds, everything's fine, but it could be that a rollover is coming soon here. Alright, the DAX, last but not least. As for the DAX and the stocks, things are still very, very quiet. So as you can see, the movements in general, crypto is actually more volatile at the moment, even though we're barely seeing any movement in crypto. I'd just be careful about going long on anything right now. It could all be over at any moment. And, before we forget, the euro against the US dollar. What do we have it here? Euro versus US dollar. Nice breakout, but unfortunately it didn't come back into our entry zone again. Well, that's how it is, it happens. But even there, you can see that the money is still flowing more into the euro market, or rather into the eurozone, instead of into the US dollar. That's not really bullish news for the, stock markets. For rising stock markets, I'd actually like to see the euro drop, though significantly lower, but at the moment, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It actually looks more like we might even hit our top again at 1.15. On a bigger scale, as we've already discussed, even rates of 1.20 or even 1.19 against the dollar are possible here, but we really have to take things one step at a time. The next resistance is just below 1.17 up here. And then we'd already be up here at 1.19. Those are the next resistance zones for the euro. And as long as things keep looking like this, the capital just keeps flowing. The big amounts of money aren't flowing directly into the US stock markets, but first into the euro. A safe haven, as people like to say, or into the yen at the moment, because the US dollar is currently undervalued. Yeah, otherwise I'd say that's it for today's video. As I said, tonight there will be a live stream on YouTube and on the other streaming platforms. If you want to join, like I said, I'll share the link later in the Telegram group. Otherwise, I'll also post on YouTube, Telegram, X, and Instagram. Feel free to follow if you're interested. And otherwise, that's it from my side. Maybe I'll manage to make another video later, like an altcoin video. If not, as I said, tonight's live stream will include all your altcoin requests, of course. That's it from me. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch up again later. Until then, bye-bye, and as always, stay crypt.